This is the most dangerous dive site on Earth.
The Blue Hole on Egypt's Red Sea coast is thought to have claimed over 100 lives.
There is something that's killing healthy, active, fit young men.
He hit the ground and he started to convulse and die.
The ocean is a place of breathtaking beauty and mystery, but it can also be unforgiving. Few places illustrate this better than the Blue Hole in Dahab, Egypt, a spectacular underwater sinkhole with a deadly reputation. Nicknamed the Graveyard of Diving, it has taken the lives of more than 130 divers, making it one of the most dangerous dive sites in the world. Today's story is about a young diver who thought he was ready to tackle the Blue Hole. What started as an exciting adventure quickly turned into a nightmare. He brought his camera to document his dive, but what he captured was far from the breathtaking views he was expecting. Instead, it showed his struggle to survive in the silent, oppressive depths. The dive took a dramatic...
I've lost a friend in the Blue Hole. You just stepped in, as so many people have before, and the next thing anyone knew was they were doing a body recovery.
So what is it that's killing dozens of divers in the prime of their lives?
Turned for him, and ultimately, what should have been a thrilling experience turned into an unforgettable tragedy. Stay with us to discover what went wrong and why the Blue Hole remains a place of beauty and danger. The Diver's Cemetery. The Blue Hole. The Blue Hole, located in Dahab, Egypt, is a stunning yet sinister underwater sinkhole that has earned the nickname the Diver's Cemetery. Its tranquil, crystal-clear waters and vibrant coral reefs attract divers from all over the world, but its beauty hides a deadly reality. Over 130 divers, some say closer to 200, have lost their lives here, making it one of the deadliest dive sites in the world. What makes the Blue Hole so dangerous? Its deceptive appearance plays a big role. Unlike most extreme dive sites, it's easily accessible and has calm waters, making it seem like an ideal spot even for recreational divers. However, the Blue Hole's extreme depth, coupled with its infamous underwater arch, has claimed the lives of even the most skilled divers. The arch, starting at 170 feet below the surface, is an 85-foot tunnel leading to the open sea. Navigating it requires technical expertise, specialized equipment, and precise buoyancy control. Mistakes here can be fatal. Nearby, memorial plaques line the cliffs as tributes to divers who never returned. The surface looks peaceful, but the Blue Hole is a trap for the unprepared, says Tarek Omar, a renowned diver known as the Bone Collector, who has recovered over 100 bodies from the Blue Hole. Among those lost was Yuri Lipsky, a 22-year-old diving instructor. In 2000, Yuri embarked on what he believed would be the dive of a lifetime. Tragically, it would become his last. His final moments, captured on his helmet camera, serve as a haunting reminder of the Blue Hole's dangers. Before we explore Yuri's fateful dive, let's take a closer look at what makes the Blue Hole such an alluring, yet deadly marvel. What is the Blue Hole? The Blue Hole is a geological wonder and a diver's challenge. It's a nearly circular sinkhole that plunges 394 feet deep and connects to the Red Sea through two main features, the saddle and the arch. The saddle, a shallow 20-foot entrance, is a gateway for beginners and snorkelers. But the arch is the real draw for thrill seekers. This underwater tunnel, starting at 170 feet, stretches for 85 feet before leading into the open ocean. Its sloping structure and immense depth make it one of the most perilous diving challenges on the planet. The arch's beauty is undeniable, but it demands technical expertise that few divers truly possess. Geologically, the Blue Hole is a remnant of ancient limestone caves that collapsed during the Ice Age. Over thousands of years, the rising sea filled the chasm, creating a striking contrast between the vibrant, shallow waters and the dark, foreboding depths. The deeper one goes, the more the light fades, creating a haunting atmosphere that has captivated and terrified divers alike. But the Blue Hole isn't just dangerous because of its structure. It's also dangerously accessible. Located just steps from the beach, with calm waters and no currents, it deceives divers into thinking it's safe. Many underestimate the challenges of diving here, especially when tempted by the arch's siren call. As Tarek Omar warns, it's not just the depth, it's the illusion of safety that gets you. The blue hole punishes overconfidence. To understand why so many lives have been lost here, we need to examine the specific dangers lurking beneath the surface. Dangers are rooted in its unique environment and the physiological challenges of deep diving. Three main factors make it deadly: depth misjudgment, nitrogen narcosis, and oxygen toxicity. The calm, clear waters create a false sense of security, leading divers to descend faster and deeper than they realize. At depths beyond 100 feet, nitrogen narcosis sets in, a condition caused by the increased pressure of nitrogen in the bloodstream. It affects the brain like alcohol, causing confusion, euphoria, and impaired judgment. Divers under its influence may feel invincible and make reckless decisions.
I've recruited some of the best deep divers in the business to investigate the curse of the blue hole.
At 213 feet or more, oxygen toxicity becomes another life-threatening issue. The pressure increases the oxygen levels in the bloodstream to toxic levels, potentially causing seizures, dizziness, and loss of motor control. Technical divers use specialized gas mixtures, like Trimix, to mitigate these risks, but recreational divers, like Yuri Lipsky, often don't have access to this equipment. The arch itself is an added hazard. It's not just an underwater tunnel, it's a sloping passage that tricks divers into descending deeper than intended. Without proper training and equipment, it's nearly impossible to navigate safely. Many divers attempt to pass through the arch, only to find themselves disoriented and trapped. The blue hole doesn't forgive mistakes, says Tarek Omar. It's beautiful, but it's also ruthless. The combination of these factors has made the blue hole one of the most feared and revered dive sites in the world. Let's now delve into the tragic tale of Yuri Lipsky, whose story highlights just how deadly these dangers can be. The record of tragedy. The blue hole's deadly reputation is etched in history, with over 130 recorded fatalities, though some estimates suggest the true number is much higher. Its haunting nickname, the Diver's Cemetery, is no exaggeration. Plaques and memorials line the cliffs near its entrance, bearing the names of those who lost their lives. But these visible tributes only scratch the surface. Many divers remain unrecovered, their stories swallowed by the abyss. One of the earliest recorded fatalities occurred in the 1980s, and the death toll has steadily grown since. Divers of all skill levels have succumbed to the blue hole's deceptive dangers. Surprisingly, it's not just novice divers who meet their end here. Most of the people I recover are experienced divers, explains Tarek Omar, the local expert tasked with retrieving bodies. It's not about skill. It's about respect for the sea and understanding your limits. The arch is a key contributor to the site's death toll. Its sloping tunnel lures divers deeper, often past the limits of their training and equipment. Without technical skills or proper gas mixtures, the pressure becomes too much to bear. Many divers become disoriented, run out of air, or suffer from nitrogen narcosis, which clouds judgment and makes it nearly impossible to return safely. These tragedies have prompted tighter regulations, including mandatory guides and safety checks. Yet, the blue hole continues to draw adventurers, its beauty and mystique overshadowing the risks. As Tarek puts it, the blue hole isn't cursed. It's the people who dive here that bring the curse by ignoring the warnings. Now, let's turn our focus to Tarek Omar himself, the man known as the Bone Collector, who has seen firsthand the cost of diving this perilous site. Tarek Omar, the Bone Collector. Tarek Omar is a name synonymous with the blue hole. A renowned technical diver and instructor, he's spent over 2 decades recovering bodies from its depths, earning the chilling nickname, the Bone Collector. I've lost count of how many I've brought back, he says, but it's well over 100. Tarek's work is as harrowing as it is essential. He's often the first call when a diver goes missing, and his missions involved descending to dangerous depths, often beyond 300 feet, to locate and recover bodies. These recoveries are not just physically demanding, but emotionally grueling. Every recovery stays with you, Tarek admits. You don't just bring back a body, you bring back the weight of a family's grief. What sets Tarek apart is his commitment to preventing more tragedies. He spends much of his time educating divers about the blue hole's risks, emphasizing the importance of technical training and proper equipment. He's also a vocal advocate for stricter regulations, believing that many deaths could have been prevented with better preparation. But, despite his warnings, the allure of the blue hole persists. They think they're different, Tarek says. They think it won't happen to them. But this place doesn't discriminate. One of Tarek's most famous recoveries was that of Yuri Lipsky, a young diver whose tragic story still serves as a cautionary tale for those who dare to challenge the blue hole. Yuri Lipsky, a dream and a risk. Yuri Lipsky was just 22 years old when he arrived in Dahab in April 2000. A diving instructor from Russia, Yuri dreamed of exploring the blue hole and recording his journey on video. It was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime, a chance to test his skills in one of the world's most famous dive sites. Despite his confidence and experience, Yuri lacked the technical training needed for such a dangerous dive. He brought only a single air cylinder and a helmet-mounted camera to document his journey, equipment insufficient for the depths of the arch. He had no backup air tanks, no trimix gases, and no technical gear. Yuri sought out experienced local divers, including Tarek Omar, to guide him, but all refused, warning him of the risks and advising weeks of preparation and training. Tarek told Yuri bluntly, "You need more than experience. You need knowledge and the right tools." But Yuri was determined to dive that weekend, unwilling to wait. With no one willing to accompany him, Yuri decided to go it alone. His confidence in his abilities blinded him to the danger ahead. He thought he was ready, Tarek recalls, but the blue hole doesn't care how confident you are. On April 28, 2000, Yuri entered the blue hole, unaware that he was about to make his final dive. Warnings ignored. Yuri Lipsky's fatal dive was a tragedy of overconfidence and ignored warnings. Days before his descent, he sought out local experts to accompany him, including Tarek Omar. But Tarek and others refused, citing Yuri's lack of preparation and the extreme risks of diving the arch. Tarek's advice was firm. Yuri needed at least 2 weeks of technical training to attempt such a dive safely. This training would have covered the use of specialized gas mixtures, advanced buoyancy control, and emergency protocols, crucial skills for navigating the blue hole's depths. But Yuri, eager to complete the dive during his short trip, dismissed the warnings. When no guide agreed to join him, Yuri chose to dive alone. He entered the water with basic scuba gear, a single air cylinder, a faulty buoyancy control device, BCD, and a helmet-mounted camera. Witnesses noted his lack of backup equipment and the heavy weight of his gear, which would later contribute to his rapid descent. Diving alone was his first mistake, Tarek reflects. Ignoring the need for training was his second. But the blue hole punishes every mistake you make. Yuri's dive was not an act of recklessness, but of misplaced confidence, a belief that his experience would be enough to conquer the blue hole. Unfortunately, as he descended into its depths, he discovered too late that he was wrong. Let's follow Yuri as he begins his final, fateful dive. The fatal dive begins. On the afternoon of April 28, 2000, Yuri Lipsky stepped into the waters of the blue hole. It was around 5 p.m. and the conditions were calm. He was equipped with his single air cylinder, a camera mounted on his helmet, and his faulty BCD. Other divers observed him preparing, noting his lack of backup equipment. At first, the dive seemed smooth. Yuri descended steadily, his helmet camera capturing the stunning underwater scenery. Coral reefs and marine life surrounded him, and the water remained clear. He appeared calm and in control, a diver embarking on an adventure. But as he approached 100 feet, the descent began to accelerate. His BCD, meant to control his buoyancy, malfunctioned, and his heavy gear made it impossible to slow down. Witnesses described his movements becoming erratic as he struggled to regain control. The deeper Yuri sank, the greater the pressure became. His air supply compressed, and his body began to absorb dangerous amounts of nitrogen. At these depths, without proper training or equipment, every second is a race against time, and Yuri was losing. The dive was already spiraling into disaster. Let's dive deeper into what happened as Yuri descended uncontrollably. The rapid descent. As Yuri Lipsky descended past 170 feet, his dive turned into a nightmare. His buoyancy control device, BCD, failed entirely, unable to counteract the weight of his gear. The helmet-mounted camera and additional weights on his belt made his descent uncontrollable, pulling him deeper at an alarming speed. At 262 feet, the water pressure had more than tripled compared to the surface. Yuri's air supply compressed rapidly, reducing the amount of breathable oxygen in his tank. The deeper he went, the harder it became to breathe. His erratic movements, captured on his helmet camera, revealed his growing panic. Nitrogen narcosis had likely set in by this point. This condition, caused by the increased partial pressure of nitrogen, affects the brain like alcohol, clouding judgment and impairing motor skills. Yuri's confusion and frantic attempts to adjust his BCD were visible signs of its effects. Instead of stabilizing himself, he inadvertently worsened his situation by overinflating his faulty BCD, which eventually ruptured under the pressure. At depths beyond 213 feet, Yuri's body would have also started experiencing oxygen toxicity. This life-threatening condition can cause seizures, dizziness, and a complete loss of control. His struggle for air grew more frantic, his breathing rapid and shallow, a desperate fight against the inevitable. The camera recorded his final moments as he reached 302 feet. Sand and silt swirled around him as he kicked and flailed, trying to shed his gear to lighten his weight. In a tragic error, Yuri removed his regulator, cutting off his oxygen entirely. Moments later, the camera fell to the ocean floor as Yuri's life came to a tragic end. Let's now turn to the recovery of Yuri's body and the haunting footage that revealed the full story of his final dive. Nitrogen narcosis sets in. By the time Yuri descended past 100 feet, he was already in the grip of nitrogen narcosis, a silent yet deadly condition that clouds a diver's judgment and coordination. Often called the Martini effect for its resemblance to drunkenness, nitrogen narcosis intensifies with depth, and Yuri was sinking fast, well beyond safe recreational diving limits. The footage from Yuri's helmet camera revealed the telltale signs of narcosis. His movements became frantic and uncoordinated, and he appeared disoriented. He fumbled with his buoyancy control device, BCD, and made repeated, erratic attempts to stabilize himself, but the deeper he went, the worse his condition became. What makes nitrogen narcosis so dangerous is its subtlety. Divers often don't realize they're affected until it's too late. It clouds judgment, creates a false sense of confidence, and can lead to life-threatening decisions. For Yuri, it likely impaired his ability to assess his situation, leaving him unable to respond effectively to the malfunctions in his gear. Tarek Omar, reflecting on the footage, explained, "Narcosis doesn't just disorient you, tricks your mind into thinking you're fine. By the time you realize you're not, you're already in danger." Yuri's confusion and panic escalated as his descent continued, but the worst was yet to come. Beyond 213 feet, he entered a zone where oxygen toxicity compounded the dangers, pushing him closer to disaster. Oxygen toxicity, the final blow. At depths exceeding 213 feet, the air Yuri was breathing became a lethal mix. Oxygen toxicity, a condition caused by the increased pressure of oxygen at extreme depths, set in. Symptoms include seizures, dizziness, and a loss of motor control, all of which were visible in Yuri's final moments. His breathing became rapid and shallow, audible in the haunting footage recorded by his helmet camera. The increased pressure was compressing his air supply, and his body was struggling to cope with the toxic effects of oxygen on his nervous system. Yuri's flailing movement suggested he was disoriented and unable to make rational decisions. Unlike technical divers who use gas mixtures like Trimix to mitigate oxygen toxicity, Yuri was breathing standard air, a critical oversight for a dive of this depth. His single air cylinder lacked the necessary safeguards, leaving him vulnerable to the physiological effects of the extreme environment. The ruptured BCD only made matters worse. With no way to control his buoyancy, Yuri was sinking deeper into the abyss. In a desperate attempt to lighten his load, he removed his gear, including his regulator, a tragic mistake that sealed his fate. Moments later, his helmet camera fell to the ocean floor, capturing only sand and silt as the final chapter of Yuri's story unfolded. A desperate struggle. Yuri's final moments were a heartbreaking mix of panic and desperation. His helmet camera, still recording, documented his struggle as he fought to regain control. He kicked up clouds of sand and silt, obscuring visibility, while his rapid, shallow breaths echoed eerily in the footage. In a last-ditch effort to ascend, Yuri began removing his gear. First, he shed his weights, then his regulator, and finally his BCD. But by this point, the crushing pressure of the water and the toxic effects of oxygen and nitrogen had left him too weak to rise. The regulator's removal, likely a panicked response to the sensation of suffocation, was a fatal error. Tarek Omar later described the scene as one of the most haunting recoveries of his career. When I found him, he was lying face down, surrounded by his gear. It was clear he had fought until the very end. The camera, still intact, provided a chilling record of Yuri's descent, a 7-minute video that would become one of the most infamous pieces of footage in diving history. Recovery by Tarek Omar. When Yuri failed to resurface, his mother pleaded with local divers to help find him. Tarek Omar, known as the Bone Collector, agreed to take on the grim task. Over 2 days, he conducted a meticulous search of the blue hole, navigating depths beyond 300 feet to locate Yuri's body. At 302 feet, Tarek found Yuri, lifeless and surrounded by his discarded equipment. The retrieval was one of the most challenging of Tarek's career, not just because of the depth, but because of the emotional weight of the task. Every recovery is hard, but this one was different. I knew his mother was waiting, hoping for a miracle, Tarek recalled. Among Yuri's belongings was his helmet camera, which had remarkably survived the depth. Tarek returned it to Yuri's mother, unaware at the time that it contained a harrowing record of his final moments. "If I'd known what was on that tape, I would have destroyed it," Tarek admitted. No mother should have to see her child's last moments like that. The recovery brought some closure to Yuri's family, but it also added to the blue hole's grim legend: the haunting footage. The video from Yuri's helmet camera is one of the most chilling pieces of diving footage ever recorded. It captured his descent into the blue hole, his growing panic, and his desperate attempts to survive. For 7 minutes, the footage documented every detail of Yuri's final moments, offering a rare and haunting glimpse into the dangers of deep diving. The video confirmed what experts had suspected. Yuri's death was a result of equipment failure, nitrogen narcosis, and oxygen toxicity. It also debunked myths of supernatural forces in the blue hole, showing instead the harsh realities of the environment. Despite its harrowing content, the footage has become a cautionary tale for divers worldwide. "It's a reminder of what can happen when you underestimate the sea," says Tarek Omar. But for Yuri's family, the video brought unimaginable pain. His mother, who watched the footage, was left with the haunting image of her son's final struggle, a tragedy that no parent should ever have to endure. Lessons from the blue hole. Yuri Lipsky's story is a sobering reminder of the risks of overconfidence and the importance of preparation. The blue hole is not a place to test limits without proper training, equipment, and respect for the sea's power. For divers, the lesson is clear. Even experience is no substitute for knowledge and caution. Diving beyond recreational limits requires technical expertise, specialized equipment, and strict adherence to safety protocols. As Tarek Omar puts it, the ocean is not forgiving. If you don't respect it, you'll pay the price. Today, the Blue Hole remains a magnet for divers, its beauty undiminished by its deadly reputation. But the plaques along its cliffs serve as a stark warning. Each name is a story, a life lost to the sea's unrelenting power. If you're inspired by this story, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Let's continue exploring the wonders and the warnings of the underwater world together.